The Daredevil Born Again Season 1 Episode 9 finale is a masterclass in trying to hide how bad the writing actually is beneath key jangling, cameos, and over-the-top violence. The amount of stupidity in the show is insane. No plot lines are completed. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's only half a season. Initially, it was going to be 18 episodes. Season 2 is filming right now. And as far as saying that the show had to undergo reshoots and a lot of the material wasn't theirs and they just had to work with it, I also don't give a shit. This is the show that we got, so that's what we can discuss. People who want to talk about what could have been and what might be can go enjoy their fan fiction or reference the comics or something else, because it's not here. This season was a colossal fucking disaster. 6 of the 9 episodes didn't matter at all. All of the new characters didn't matter. The old characters we had to watch get humiliated for an entire season. And the entire ending of this episode, for the people that like the show, hinges on, oh, I wonder what superheroes will show up for season 2. Nothing of fucking substance, because nothing makes sense. Your seasons should all have completed arcs and finales, with some threads being left open for the show to go on. The scenes with the actors that we knew from the prior seasons, like Karen, the Punisher, Daredevil, those scenes all are very well acted, but just come out of nowhere as far as Karen is concerned. Completely undeserved. They turned the Punisher into a complete moron. They also turned Fisk into a moron in this bizarre world where they think mayors can become dictators with no repercussions. There is no hope for season 2 getting better, so let's just get into it. We start off with a scene that wasn't necessary and makes the show substantially worse right away. Vanessa hand waves away the events of season 3, and that's the excuse for Fisk being out of jail. Everything that happened with him blackmailing the FBI agents and Nadim's entire story that he sacrificed his life for, go fuck himself. That's all just gone now. They also just completely castrate Bullseye. They want him to be such a vegetable that he can barely sign a paper, but these documents would be respected in a court. And he also wouldn't turn on Vanessa when Fisk is the one that got him in here to begin with, because Fisk killed Julie. They just try to undo all that and hand wave it away. And the funny thing is, a simple throwaway line of, I worked through a broker to try to get Bullseye freed to kill Foggy, leaving it vague enough, but still an explanation would have worked about 10 times better. I think this also kind of undermines the whole Vanessa was running the business better than Kingpin ever did thing, where Vanessa had to go to Bullseye because he's the only one who can kill Foggy, the guy who's supposed to be a vegetable in prison for life. So in less than 5 minutes, they've managed to eviscerate their entire story, the key event that sparked it, and the characters. Congratulations. They continue to make Heather an insufferable cunt. Matt says Karen as he's coming out of his drug-induced state, which it's wild how the show has every character around Daredevil and Kingpin function just to give them lectures and talk down to them. So of course, Matt took a bullet for Fisk, and this drug-induced state of him saying Karen's name is what makes Heather go work for Fisk and seemingly dump Matt. We don't know if they're broken up, but it seems like it's headed in that direction. Always the sign of a great girlfriend, when you literally take a bullet for somebody and she gets pissed off at you. He took a bullet for somebody that she thinks is a good enough guy for her to go work for, by the way. Fucking wild. And then Kirsten sits here just to lecture Matt, call him crazy, tell him that she's not going to give him the files because he needs to let it go and he's just a lunatic. We find out that Vanessa's plan was to use a free port in the area that Fisk wants to rebuild in order to launder money through it. And Fisk says that with his power, they can go from millions to billions. And I get money laundering through the port being a thing because free ports in real life are kind of like reduced tariffs or duty-free zones or whatever. And they're a lot more leeway with what you can do. But the show treats it like it's its own little country that can just do whatever you want. If you've seen the episode of Family Guy from a long time ago where he can't find his address in the city book for some reason, he creates Pretoria and tries to act like it's his own country. That's about how dumb this idea is, at least to the degree that they're taking it. And then the show once again thinks that mayor means you're just god of your city. You can just do whatever you want. They also don't seem to know the definition of vigilante. Fisk, in his big rant about what a tyrant he's going to become, says vigilante is like Poindexter, but they keep referring to murderers as vigilantes. And then he goes on about how there'd be no body cams, no due process, no warrants. None of these things are legal, and sure as fuck not at the mayoral level. And the show just continues to be retarded, where it points out everything he just said is illegal, and they just go ahead and do it anyway. Fisk sends Buck to go finish off Matt Murdock, and the show has never explained why Fisk wouldn't just oust him. Him saying that he's Daredevil, I'm sure would be provable with all the resources he has, destroy his credibility as a lawyer, ruin his whole life without doing anything, and he just never does it. Not to mention there would be a coroner's report about the cause of death. And aside from that, of course the show does the Hollywood magic bullet thing, where Matt takes a bullet to the chest and just naps it off in a couple hours. Super fucking annoying. He probably hangs out with Sabine Wren. Fisk tells Sheila to send everyone home who's not 100% loyal so that he can have them killed through martial law through the task force. And they use a really weird abbreviation here, which is pretty amazing considering all the naked exposition this show has, that it wouldn't just explain who Con Ed is, so you have to go look it up. It's apparently Consolidated Edison, which is one of the biggest energy companies in the country. Gallo, in the most predictable he's gonna die speech, asks Sheila to side with him, all to set up a pretty brutal death later that's kind of gross and I think kind of fucks the show up anyway. Not to mention the fact that the show treats turning the power off to an entire city as just a guy clicking a button somewhere, when in reality a lot of infrastructure is actually top secret. You have to have classification to get to it. It's protected physically, not as simple as just finding the right person to turn it off. Anyway, so they hit the big red button. Buck is about to go inject Matt Murdock, but he healed himself within seemingly an hour-ish. We don't really have a time scale. Maybe a few hours. Either way, ridiculous. The show is nice enough to remember that the Punisher can't sneak up on Daredevil, even though he did it the last time that he showed up, because that was more dramatic for the scene. And they make the Punisher and Daredevil kind of just brute retards. The fight scene that we get here in just a second is okay, but Matt is literally dying from being shot, and I don't know what his plan was if the Punisher hadn't shown up. Remember the first time we see the Punisher? He's not even on screen, he's killing people from a distance. Remember that other time we see him helping out Matt and Elektra, and he's taking people out from a roof across the street? He doesn't do any of that here. He just comes and hangs out in the room where they're encircled, trying to get himself shot, and does. The performances for this fight are still good, obviously, just because the actors. The editing still sucks, just like it has the rest of the season, where it's hard as balls to see anything. The dialogue is mostly fine, but I feel like what we're going to get from Punisher the longer he does stuff with Disney is he's just slowly going to become more and more of like the quippy, annoying stereotype of a Marvel character that they all are. The task force shows up, which means nothing to me because we haven't seen them do shit. And also, again, if Fisk didn't tell these guys that they're going to kill a blind man, then what? They're just total pieces of shit who will kill a blind lawyer? Cold-blooded murder for no reason. And if Fisk did tell him, then by now everyone knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Any secret that you tell to more than a couple people is going to get out. Frank also asked the question that everyone asked. Why did you take a bullet for Fisk? And Matt says, that's a good question. And then it never comes up again because the writers don't even have a fucking answer. Because based on Daredevil just this season, he might have killed him on his own, let alone going out of his way to take a bullet for him. Also, again, they do the thing where we see Daredevil hit people and a bunch of blood comes out and their head crunches and they just say they're not dead because they don't want Daredevil to kill, even though they're showing him to be doing things that would kill people on screen. They get it down very conveniently to the only guy alive who has the Punisher bullets in his gun. So we know that he killed Hector. And who gives a fuck? No one knew anything about Hector. No one knows anything about this guy. I can't remember his fucking name. Who cares? But they wanted to be this big dramatic reveal. And Matt would also take a bullet for him, apparently. There's a really funny thing here, too, and probably the best scene of the whole episode, where after Matt gets in the way of Frank shooting this guy, and Frank gets pissed off at him, asking him why he take bullets for all these pieces of shit. He's like, what about him, huh? And points to a guy on the ground, just starts unloading on him. A grenade comes in, blows up the whole apartment. Obvious cause of Matt Murdock's death was still going to be the bullets. No suspicion there at all. And the least surprising, blinded by the light reveal ever is Karen. And this is all just bring back the people that you like to try to get you to like the show and forget that we wrote them out of the show for 8.5 episodes. I mean, even the explanation that we get for her coming back is just, I heard what happened. Like, there's no build up, there's no setup, just we need her back. We need Punisher back because people like him. They just bring him back. And because the show has to directly state everything, Karen says that the Punisher actually does care about them before she leaves, in case you didn't get that from him helping out Daredevil repeatedly. Daniel is doing his best mobster impersonation. His character fucking sucks. I don't know if it's the actor's fault or just the show in general, but he again just openly blackmails people and tells them all to support Fisk dictatorship or he'll leak the information he has on him, as you do with blackmail. And then we get more of these BB reports that don't fucking mean anything, where we see the city burning itself down. And it's so weird to me that the show doesn't seem to realize that if Fisk wants to take advantage of his position, he should stay as popular as he can, and instead it makes him a dictator. Just absurd. And because we have to get in the all cops are bastards narrative, the cops are just going around shooting people, calling them vigilantes, and planting evidence. Evidence being just a mask, of course. No one else is ever going to look into it again. And I have no idea how Fisk has even the manpower to shut the city down the way that he wants to. The only kind of excuse you could even use is that literally every cop that they have is just a piece of shit. And even then, I don't think it would be enough. And here we get the big twist. The show doesn't even seem to understand that it doesn't make any sense. They literally say this port is exempt from all jurisdiction. Fisk can create a city-state. Why would Vanessa bother with the hit on Foggy if it's legal? If it's exempt the way that they talk about it, who cares? Like, she's already moving money around without customs, without taxation. They say all this. Like, even if she's getting around the law, at a minimum, the government is aware of the activity. So there's no point in trying to hide it. There's no incentive for killing Foggy. Who gives a shit? She was already the queen pin in charge and the best leader ever. So why bother? Because murder in the US is actually illegal, as is putting hits on people. If she just kept money laundering, she'd have no issue. And with Fisk in charge of the city, he could funnel resources there or work whatever loopholes he wanted to, as long as he's popular in particular, instead of trying to become a little mini tyrant, shut down the city, and have people murdered just for fun. And here's where they pad the runtime and turn Frank into a fucking idiot. He shows up to Red Hook with no gun. Luckily, one of them yells out, use non-lethals, so that he can fight for a bit. And then some guy is dumb enough to put a gun to the back of his head, but not be able to do anything with it before he gets killed. If you ignore the character damage this does, the fight itself is hard to follow again. It's okay overall. And the idea of him getting himself trapped intentionally is ridiculous. I'm not even going to entertain it. When he did it in season 2, it was to get information. He also came prepared with ways to escape. This is just him walking into a war zone with no gun, full of people that he assumes are going to want to kill him. Absolutely asinine. Gallo, unsurprisingly, gets betrayed. I don't really even have anything to say. It was so obvious, and I don't give a fuck about this character or any of the ones betraying him to the point that who gives a shit. They try to recruit Castle to be their leader, and I'm just assuming this is all ideologically motivated nonsense because there's been cops in real life that have had Punisher logos and shit, so they just hate all the cops and think they're all Punisher inspired and want to murder people. And it's also weird because they're kind of framing it as Frank can just work with them and do what he wants. The implication being he can kill bad guys, but then they also show them as just rampantly corrupt, murdering innocent people, thugs. But they also have no real identity because they've got about 5 minutes of screen time, and every time we see them, they get their fucking ass kicked. And the dialogue for even the Punisher here is just creeping toward being Disneyfied, where he literally just says, you think you know my pain, instead of something a little bit more indirect or normal sounding, like we have in previous seasons to compare to. It's also wild to me that they show Fisk wanting to kill the vigilantes. They're killing random kids in the street, calling them vigilantes. They tried to fucking blow up Daredevil or Matt Murdock as far as they know, possibly. And what do we do with the Punisher? We have him dead to rights. Stick him in a cell. Make up a really dumb fuck mid-credit scene so he can escape instead of killing one of the biggest threats to our lives. And we get the scene where they try to make up for the fact that Kingpin was a cuck by having him crush his skull in his bare hands. Out of curiosity, I looked this up. It'd be about 600 pounds of force. So I'm sure this won't be taken into account at all the next time that he fights Daredevil. And then here we get one conversation which kind of just rehashes season 3, where Karen says, look, Fisk has control of everything. You either need to prepare to be killed or kill yourself. And they even reference a line from the previous seasons. The climactic fight scene, by the way, was the one with Punisher and Daredevil versus the corrupt cops that no one knows any of the names of and we haven't seen do shit all season. We get the conclusion for Heather's, well, I was going to say arc, but it's more just like a flat line that falls off a cliff. She just kind of goes from no personality and forgettable to insufferable cunt and also delusional, and says that she saved herself when we saw her not. And now she works for Fisk, and I'm assuming he's going to dump Matt, or that will be soon if they haven't broken up already. And what's supposed to be the epic speech is just once again full of idiocy. The idea that people would just believe the power went out across the whole city, that there'd be no one to leak it, the fact that there would be no one who saw cops killing innocent people or just killing people in general. Anyway, again, they don't understand the definition of vigilante. Fisk says that vigilante activity is now illegal, which by definition it always was. And he gives out a curfew and martial law, and we're supposed to just pretend that nothing outside of what we see in this show exists, I guess. I don't even think most mayors have the authority to enact martial law in the United States. Even if he did, the idea of a governor allowing martial law under his own reign in the biggest city in the state is astonishingly retarded. And again, this would all just lead to people being like, fuck that guy, and wanting to strip him of his power and not voting for him. And he'd probably be getting subpoenaed and all kinds of shit for trying this crazy nonsense as a fucking politician. And the writers once again demonstrate that they have no care or really any understanding of Matt Murdock as a character. One of his biggest struggles is his inner anger and darkness and not killing people, and his Catholicism and beliefs kind of rein that in to some degree, and a belief in the law and judicial system in general. But he tells Karen that he made this mistake even though it was acknowledged in previous seasons ad nauseum. And Karen talks about how no matter who he is, her and Foggy believe in him and care about him. Even though you could argue that Foggy didn't actually believe in him because he was trying to keep the information hidden from Matt. Anyway, and we get a shitty music video to end the season, promising a better next season, which will never fucking happen. I believe it's filming right now. My guess is we won't even get it till like 2027. And Matt says that him and his army are going to rise up, which is apparently Karen, Josie, Detective Kim, Cherry, and a couple female cops. And that's going to do it to get rid of Fisk. And we get the incredibly consistent character of Fisk arresting all the vigilantes he promised to deal with while exploding the police commissioner's head. No clue why he wouldn't just kill him. Bullseye, who tried to kill the mayor at the end last episode and was the impetus for all this shit, just disappeared, by the way. He was in one flashback as a vegetable and then here crying. And Matt's entire speech here just sounds like we need a revolution to overthrow the tyrant. And I can only assume this is all very meta based, because I think the only praise that I've seen for this shit with Fisk is that there's a corrupt president in the country right now, and the show is reflective of real life and blah, blah, blah. And he says resist and rebel and all the buzzwords. And then a light blinks red, and you're supposed to jack off because it's Daredevil and he's the devil and his suit's red and the devil in hell is red. Absolute fucking cringe dog shit to end the season. But don't worry, we still managed to fit in a little bit more stupidity. And this is the laziest prison escape ever. Maybe even lazier than the one that I already called the laziest for Bullseye earlier in the season, where Punisher literally says, "Hey, what's your name?" "Oh, thanks for talking to me," and sticks his hand out to shake it, and the guy's like, "Oh, okay," and does it. Absolute lunacy. And that's the end of this miserable fucking season. All the Daredevil fanboys, I'm sure, will jack off about the potential for next season and how Fisk is back and Daredevil's born again. And they'll ignore that zero fucking human effort went into writing this. It feels like it was written by a half-complete AI. I can only assume next season will be just as bad at this point. 6 of the 9 episodes had no purpose. All of the characters that they introduced hardly showed up in the last episode except to be assholes and to let you know their story's not done yet. Everything about this was just inept. So I guess we'll see in a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. Season 2, I have very little hope for. I thought this finale was just a key jangling cameo fest disaster. I'm going to leave it there for this one. If you've seen the episode, let me know what you think. Try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.